Can't decide and torn between a romantic, comedy, action, or an indie film to watch for the weekend? Well, Golden State Media Concepts Movie Podcast is your ultimate guide to the latest movies. Join us as we dissect the latest on the blockbusters. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Movie Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Movie Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Heidi, and I'm joined by the beautiful Arianne.
Hi.
Oh my God. It's true.
Thank you.
We are talking about some fun movies today. Arianne and I are both very excited.
Yes.
We will be talking about the new in theaters Bohemian Rhapsody, and then we'll be talking about the music biopic, Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah.
We are starting with Bohemian Rhapsody. As I said, this is in theaters right now. You should definitely go see it.
Go see it. Oh my gosh.
We will definitely be stressing that.
Yes.
It is directed by Bryan Singer, written by Anthony McCartan, and I also want to mention Freddie Mercury is played by Rami Malek,
yes,
who is spectacular. Basically, this movie is a chronicle of the years leading up to Queen's legendary appearance at Live Aid, the concert, which happened in 1985. And this is about the rock band Queen. They are a British band. I would say their music is almost like stadium rock, pop sort of thing. They're not... I feel like they did do a couple different things. They really push the boundaries of pop and rock, I would say. Mm-hmm. So they're not as distinctly one genre, the Rolling Stones or rock. This Queen's a little bit more diverse, in my opinion.
Yeah, I want to say that Brian May and what was the drummer's name? I forget his name.
John.
Yeah. I don't know, but they helped produce this movie too.
Oh, yes.
So they had a hand in how it all came together.
Yeah,
also.
So Brian May was the original guitarist of Queen. Roger Taylor is the drummer. And then their bass player is John Deacon. I believe it was mostly Brian and Roger who participated in this because John actually... Brian and Roger still play as Queen, kind of, with other members, and John does not.
Yeah.
He actually doesn't do any more music.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Brian and Roger play Queen music with different rock star lead singers.
They do. Right now they're with Adam Lambert, who was on American Idol, and he apparently does a very good Freddie Mercury impression.
Oh, nobody can touch Freddie Mercury.
I know.
I'm so sorry. Okay,
I know. Okay, so as I said, this is about Queen. It's about their start as a band and how they go on to play the Live Aid concert, and sort of their experience. And it particularly focuses on Freddie Mercury. And we learn about him, about his very humble beginnings and his struggles with fame and fortune, and how the band relationships and all of those things kind of as they grow as a band.
Right.
And it's a great story. I feel like music, biopics, always do well in box office. Everyone always likes them. I read a lot of people who were saying this is perfect for award season because these movies always do well in award season, which I could definitely see.
Oh yeah.
Also, as I said, Rami Malek plays Freddie Mercury. When I looked him up, I was like, okay, where have I seen him before? He is in Mr. Robot, which is very popular.
Yeah, it is.
And I have not seen it, but then I was like, I know I've seen him. And in Night at the Museum, he plays the pharaoh.
Yeah, he plays the Egyptian pharaoh.
So
he's Egyptian for real.
He is. And so that's where I was like, that's where I've seen him.
Yeah. He also plays some dude in Twilight, some vampire guy.
He plays
in Twilight.
the Egyptian vampire.
Exactly. Yeah, he's a great actor.
He is very good. I feel like this is definitely a role that he's just going to grow from here.
Oh, yeah, he did such a great job.
He did
such a great job,
and he has done a lot of work before this. He's actually done a lot of voiceover work for video games, which I didn't know. So he's spectacular. He wears fake teeth so that he looks like Freddie Mercury.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I would almost say because Freddie Mercury's face like it is always like that.
Yeah.
It like looks more natural than when you see Rami, because I'm like, his teeth look bigger on him because his face isn't designed for like the extra teeth.
It's really not, because his head is so much smaller.
It's so much smaller than Freddie Mercury's.
Yeah, Freddie had like it was a weirdly large head,
but he was proportionate to his teeth.
Yeah, but not the rest of his body, because I felt like he looked like a bobblehead. Like
a little
his
bit.
Head was larger than his body was so small.
I also would say I felt like Rami Malek was like thinner than like Freddie Mercury. Like he looked smaller.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I didn't look up his height, but he looked smaller.
Right, he does.
And Freddie Mercury to me was always like a bigger,
like a
taller, more like slightly more like muscular type guy. Like, he was a little bit just bigger.
Yeah.
I don't want to say thick because that's weird. Yeah. But he was just like a little bit bigger.
Would like it though.
Yeah. You know, who knows? And one of the things that I appreciated about this movie is learning about Freddie Mercury, because I know Queen. I love their music. I'm not an expert, but I've heard it growing up.
Right, exactly.
But I also feel bad for not knowing this. I did not know that Freddie Mercury, his real name is Farouk Balsara. He was Percy. And I did not know that. Parsi, I'm sorry. He's Parsi. And I didn't know that. And Parsi is like, they're people who are Parsi are members of like a specific community that migrated to India, also like present day Pakistan from Persia during the Arab invasion. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that his family came from like he wasn't born in England.
Right.
He moved to England when he was younger.
Right.
And I didn't know that about him.
I knew he was like I don't know if this is like rude to say, but like a Middle Eastern of Middle Eastern origin. I knew that.
Yeah.
Just because, not like personally, my sister is a really big Queen fan, and I know, like growing up, I heard a ton of like Queen music, not just specifically because of her, but my pops likes old like rock like that too, and who doesn't like Queen songs?
Exactly.
Come on, seriously, yeah. So I did know that about Freddie Mercury.
Okay, so this was great for me to learn about him. Before he was in Queen, he worked at Heathrow Airport, very humble beginnings, always writing songs. So it was great for me to learn about that. Also, and this is something that I feel connects to the movie that we're going to talk about next, Straight Outta Compton. Both the band Queen and the NWA, as we'll mention later, they really were trying to break stereotypes in a way, and also not listen to the naysayers. Like I walked away from this movie feeling very inspired because of how strong these artists believed in their vision and how they weren't going to compromise. They weren't going to listen to anyone else. Kind of trying to like shoot them down or say that they can't do it, and they stuck with it, and they were successful because of that.
Right, and no matter how risky the management team thought it would be, like I love that their drive was amazing.
Right, and also since you said management team, I would like to mention. So in the movie, they have he's like a lawyer. Yeah. His name is Ray Foster, and he's like the guy they don't like and they fight against. And he says, "You're not doing Bohemian Rhapsody as a single. It's too long.
Yeah,
you're not putting it on the radio. It's 6 minutes." And they say, "Well, if you don't want us, then we're just gonna walk."
Yeah.
And he's actually played by Mike Myers.
Yeah,
which I did not know. I did not recognize him.
I didn't recognize him either. His voice gave it away. But then I watched, it's like I told Heidi this earlier, after I watched this movie, I went and watched a lot of like short documentaries about Freddie and about Queen, and then one of them was of Rami Malek talking about it and having Mike Myers there, and they showed like the whole Wayne's World scene when they're in the car, because he mentions that in the movie, no kids or whatever gonna bang their head in a car to Bohemian Rhapsody, and they showed that whole scene in Wayne's World.
Right, when he does exactly that.
Yeah, exactly that. It was hilarious.
Oh, that's really funny. That's great. So I also thought that he did a great job. I felt like the acting was good by everyone in this film.
Yeah.
Some other actors of note. So let's see. Brian May, who is the guitarist in Queen, was played by Gwilym Lee. Roger, who is the drummer, was played by Ben Hardy. And John Deacon, who is the bass player, was played by Joseph Mazzello. All of them did a great job. As I've already mentioned, Mike Myers is in the film. And I was impressed. I know that when Rami Malek went to audition and was on set, he met with Brian and Roger, and they kind of like watched him like prep. And I feel like they were very positive about his performance.
Oh, yeah.
So I definitely think that was great.
The casting, I want to say the casting was amazing because the person who they got to play Brian May and Roger, and they look a lot like, and it's not just like makeup or whatever, they resemble them so much. I was like, go ahead with the casting.
Yeah.
You guys did good.
I'm glad they kept Brian's hair.
Isn't it just great?
The perm is always great.
It really
I would say when I was watching this film, it felt sort of like the greatest hits of Queen.
Yeah.
Like it felt like they talked about all of their songs and you kind of got to see like how some of that got made. Like they're iconic songs. Another thing that I liked is really portraying the band as a family.
Yeah.
And that's something that they say multiple times in the film. And just like that's one of the things that they say in the beginning to their management that sets them apart.
Yeah.
Is like they're not necessarily supposed to be together. They're all very different, but they all work as like a family unit.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that because even when, like Freddie, is really aggressive in his creativity and says, we have to do it this way. We're going to do it this way.
Yeah.
Sort of like the ideas man. I feel like the band supports him in all of that. And other members of the band wrote and performed as well. But I definitely feel like they supported Freddie as he was like, we're going to do an opera.
Yeah. But they all put their own twist on it too. It wasn't just like, it was mainly like Freddie's idea on a lot of the things, but they still gave their input, not just, okay, we're just going to do what you say, which in a scene there, and I don't know if this is like a spoiler or if this is like well known, when he did go off on his own and he's like, I told the other band people that I hired to do and I told them exactly what they do and they did it. And he was like, that was the worst part because I didn't get Brian's feedback on we're going to do it, try it like this, or Roger's, attitude or anything like that. And that's what I kind of liked, that it was like a family because nobody just follows one person. They all have their own little opinion and they incorporate that in their music in a lot of ways too. It's amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I loved seeing that and hearing them talk about it. It also just makes me appreciate Queen so much more.
Oh, yeah.
Like on the way over here to record this podcast, I listened to Queen the whole way over. I was like jamming out. It was great.
So good. And even it's crazy because I listened to some songs and I'm like, really? They sang that was them? So I was just like, wow. And then you could just hear the remakes of all of their, and just like, oh my gosh, you guys are not doing this justice. Especially after hearing Freddie just sing it loud. It's like, man. Oh my gosh, your voice is awesome.
I know. It was great. So we're going to take a break and then we're going to keep talking about Bohemian Rhapsody.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. Keith keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
Welcome back to the movie podcast. We are continuing to talk about the now in theaters film Bohemian Rhapsody. Earlier, before the break, we mentioned about some of the group dynamic of Queen and how we appreciated that they were really like a family unit and worked well together. I would also like to add that I appreciated that the band portrayed that and was sort of portrayed in that way.
Right.
But I would say the movie is mostly focused on like Freddie and like we talked about the band as well,
right?
But I feel like there is definitely a focus on Freddie Mercury, which is very understandable. He's definitely a cultural icon,
right?
One of the things that they followed is his personal struggles, his relationship struggles, his I don't know if I would say identity struggles, but in finding other people around him that he can trust.
Exactly.
And that's something that also relates to the other movie we're going to talk about, Straight Outta Compton, is just like who you can trust.
Right, exactly.
And especially as you become famous and you have money and influence and ability, like who are you going to have around you?
Right. And sometimes you're blinded by that.
Right.
They get blinded because they're so caught up in everything that's happening. And I liked how they showed it in this one. Well, even in Straight Outta Compton also, but they did a good job.
I feel like they portrayed it well. I really enjoyed that. that. And I enjoyed a lot of things about this movie. I would also like to add that there are some historical inaccuracies that people have brought up.
Yeah.
So in the film, when the band Queen goes to play Live Aid in 1985, they bring up, Freddie tells them that he has AIDS.
Right.
And that is sort of like a fuel, I would say, for their performance going into Live Aid. But in reality, when they played Live Aid, Freddie Mercury didn't know that he had AIDS. He didn't know until 1987, which was 2 years after Live Aid.
Right.
So people have pointed out that as an inaccuracy. Also, when Freddie did solo work from Queen, he didn't technically leave the band.
Yeah.
And also before that, Roger had done solo work.
Right. They all each did.
Right. They all did solo.
Work.
Yeah. So in the film, it's sort of like, oh, how could you? Also, I don't feel bad talking about this because it's a historical fact that
exactly. Look
he
it up.
did solo things. But they're like, oh, how could you do this to us? But really, he wasn't the first one to do that.
Right. And
other
it wasn't
members
about,
had done it before.
Yeah. And it wasn't about like when he said he wanted to do that and about breaking up the band, because when they each did that, it said, it's like I said, I watched a lot of documentaries after because I was just like, I want to know more. That when each of them did choose to do their own solo things, they still performed and recorded as a band together. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm leaving the band to go do this by myself. It's like, I'm just going to do this and I'm still in the band. We can still do stuff together.
Right. Yeah.
Which I liked.
Right. I agree. And I think that's really honorable that the band did that. And as we've said, Roger and Brian still do perform together under the name Queen. So I would say that's something people have brought up as an inaccuracy, and people have really said like they didn't need to do that.
Right.
Like it wasn't really necessary for the story. I have seen in a way, and I think I sort of agree with this in a way, some people have criticized this movie as sort of like a sanitized version of certain things that happened, some of the things that Freddie Mercury went through. Because I would say for a movie that has a star who does, a lot of things that are risky behavior, they don't really show it really explicitly. Those things are all hinted at. And so some people are saying like, it's almost like he's just like a deer in the headlights when all this is going on around him. Yeah. He's not really seen doing it. It's just like hinted that he does. And I agree.
Yeah. The intent is there. And I feel like the reason why they did that was because this is a movie and it is only rated PG-13. It's not rated R. So to get a wider variety of audience. Right. Because that's why me and my sister and my brother-in-law went to go watch this, and the kids were like, we want to come watch Queen too. And it's like, we don't know what's going to be in it yet, so let the adults go see it, and then if it's okay, even though it was rated PG-13, we were like, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? But I agree. It was, a little bit,
it was like a little like sanitized. I
yeah.
agree. I think because of their rating, they didn't want to do that. I think there are probably people out there who would say they wished it was rated R. There are always going to be people out there who wish that it was rated R. But I do agree the benefit of its PG-13 rating is you can take your kids. And I would say you definitely can. You can. And I think it's a great film to get to know about the band Queen. So I agree.
Right. But also if you already do know about the band Queen, then they give the intent. So it's not like they need to describe everything that was probably happening in his life at that time with Freddie Mercury and being involved in, parties, whatever he chose to do with his life. The intent was there. Like when he had that house party, I mean, they showed it. He wasn't really blind to, being in that environment and, he just didn't know. It gave that intent, and that's all that needed to be, which I liked with that too. So I don't really feel like it was like, oh, they watered it down a little bit. It's okay though, because if you know Queen, you get it.
Right. Yeah. I agree. I think that there will be people out there who want it to be grittier.
That's not necessary.
It's not I don't know how I feel about that personally. I don't really feel like it's needed. Right. But I would still watch it if it was.
Oh yeah.
And I would probably still enjoy it. Another thing that I wanted to mention. So for me, when I was watching this, all I could think about, I was like, did Rami Malek sing? Because I just kept thinking that. And so I looked into it. And so really what they did for the film is the singing parts are Rami Malek is lip syncing. And he is lip syncing to a combination of his some of his singing than Freddie Mercury's singing. And there is also a singer who's famous on YouTube for singing Queen, and his name is, what is it? Mark Martel. And he is actually, I think he's like a Canadian YouTube singer or something. And he sounds eerily like Freddie Mercury.
Right.
So it's actually at times different combinations of all of their voices to make the very iconic Freddie Mercury sound. So, and I mean, that doesn't take anything away from me. You know, I mean, I'm glad they didn't have Rami Malek try and sing if he can't.
So I was watching things about him too, and he said soon as he found out he got the role, he flew himself to London and started taking like dance lessons and singing lessons and stuff like that. But then he was like, I don't need to take dance lessons because Freddie doesn't know how to dance. He just kind of felt it.
He just moves.
Yeah. But with the singing, he did say he wanted, because he wasn't like, when he went into it, he even told them, he's like, I'm not going to be the Hollywood actor who sells myself on this. I don't know how to sing. I don't think I can dance very well, but I'll try. But he did take the singing lessons just to get, because if you've ever noticed like a singer, you can see like the veins in their neck and the their breathing and all that stuff as they're performing. And he wanted that. So to learn how to sing and move all at the same time, he did do that for the part. So as he is singing, they kind of voice overed Freddie's voice and the guy from Canada's voice. Even though he was still actually singing. So that's what he was like. He wanted to at least try.
Right. And I agree. I feel like he embodies Freddie Mercury when he's acting. He really does. Also, I would like to add that when they do the performance of Live Aid, if you watch this movie of Live Aid, it's almost exactly like the actual Live Aid, which you can watch on YouTube for free if you just want to see Queen perform. And it is considered one of the greatest rock performances ever. Yeah. And you can understand why. When watching the film, I would say I watch it and I was like, I just want to watch actual Freddie Mercury.
Right.
But I can't. So this is the best thing that I have. And it's really there are parts where it's almost exactly like what he does on stage. It's amazing. I would also like to add there's some nice details, like at their first show that Queen does, Freddie Mercury can't get the mic stand to work, so he kind of like pulls it off. And then you see that the rest of the movie when he performs, he does that. That like becomes his thing.
That became his little niche, like having half of a mic stand.
I loved that. I'm really glad they put in that detail. My overall thoughts in this film was I had sort of like a head versus heart issue where my heart loved it. I was inspired. I've really come to realize through watching so many movies recently that I love like epic stories of, you know, like First Man, like the epic story of a man getting to the moon, things like human conquest. No, that sounds bad. But like human success in things and the human story. I really enjoy that.
Right.
Sort of like this film felt that way. It was very inspiring to me and epic in that sense about Freddie Mercury's life. So I really loved that, and I got like a thrill of it all, and then I got sad because thinking about Freddie Mercury. But I loved it all. It touched my heart. My head, though, probably had a few questions about it. As I said, it was a bit sanitized, and part of me is like, I don't know, like maybe it could have been grittier. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But like my head had a few moments where I was like, I don't know if I fully am on board. Something about it felt like, as I said before, like the greatest hits almost, as opposed to, I don't know. You can't do fully in depth about someone's life in like a 2-hour movie, which it is kind of long. I will say it is kind of long, which is understandable because again, it's someone's life. You can't just put that into 2 hours.
Well, I do want to say that with Brian May and Roger being part of it, they didn't want it too gritty, because I know that one of the things that I watched, they had initially cast somebody else for like in 2016 to play Freddie Mercury, and he wanted it to be more rated R kind of style too, and they were like, no, we don't need to do all that.
Oh, interesting.
So that's why it wasn't like, it's like you said, even if it was, you'd still go see it, and a lot of people would, because you know it's Queen. But they were like, that's unnecessary to show all that. Why? Because we can see like the real, and also they kind of went on to say that they knew the real Freddie. So they were like, we don't want to depict him as this just, you know, flamboyant gay boy who just did whatever, and he was just, you know, reckless with his activities. You know what I mean? And they were like, no, he was genuine to people. He cared. He gave to, you know, people and organizations, and he was he helped so many, and I feel like that's what they wanted to portray of him more than just like this wild, crazy person that does whatever he wants.
I definitely feel that in watching this film. And as I said, I would watch any version of it. You know, it was great.
I'd go watch it again.
Oh,
I loved it
for sure.
I loved it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and I could definitely see that influence in this film. I think I definitely felt that in a way, like it was a tribute to Queen, but it's also a tribute to Freddie Mercury's life.
Exactly.
In a way that we can remember him by.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I definitely feel that.
Go see it.
Yeah,
it was
definitely
really
go
good.
see it.
You will not be disappointed. Even if you are like a diehard Queen fan and you do pick out those like little details. Yeah, it's still good.
Right. And how could you not like Queen music?
Exactly.
You're gonna like it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna take a break, and then we're gonna come back and talk about Straight Outta Compton.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Movie Podcast. We are talking about Straight Outta Compton. So, Straight Outta Compton from 2015. This is directed by Gary Gray, written by Jonathan Herman and Andrea Birloff, and this is really a musical biographical drama. It is about the group NWA, which emerges from Compton in Los Angeles, California in the mid-1980s, and it's about how they revolutionize hip-hop culture with their music and sort of what they call reality rap, and talking about their life and their life in the hood, and it's about the rise and fall of the group, and it follows the members as they navigate through fame.
Yes.
And I enjoyed this film. I have seen it a couple times now. I would say this makes sense now that I've looked into it. It was involved in the production were NWA members Ice Cube and Dr. Dre. They were producers, as was Eazy-E's widow, Tamika Woods Wright. And MC Ren and DJ Yella, who were also NWA members, served as creative consultants. I can really see their influence on this film.
Right.
Also, Ice Cube's portrayal in this movie is played by his real life son, O'Shea Jackson Jr.,
who looks just like
Ice Cube. It is amazing. I'm so glad that he can also act, because he looks just like his dad.
Well, he had to take acting lessons, and his dad was like, "We're not gonna just give you this part because you look like me.
Yeah,
you have to work for it."
And he did a good job.
He did a really good job.
So I'm really glad that worked out. Also, Corey Hawkins plays Dr. Dre. Jason Mitchell plays Eazy-E. You will also see Paul Giamatti, who is in this film as as NWA's manager, Jerry Heller.
Yeah.
I just saw this movie and I was like, oh, it's just Paul Giamatti playing someone who Paul Giamatti is good at portraying. You know, like Paul Giamatti's a great actor.
He is. He plays those kind of characters.
He's good at it. And so that's why when I saw him, I'm like, oh, it's just Paul Giamatti playing another guy like that. You know, and he does it well. So hats off to you. So this film was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. It made over $200 million. It had a production budget of $50 million. And it also inspired Dr. Dre's third studio album, Compton, which debuted at number 2 on the U.S. Billboard album chart. And that came out a week prior to the film's release. So there was a lot of hype about this film. Also, on a side note, Jerry Heller, the actual manager of NWA, he filed a lawsuit against the filmmakers, and he protested that his depiction, and he protested against his depiction and claimed that parts were taken from his autobiography without permission. After seeing this movie, for however much truth is in it, I don't know, but I don't feel super bad for Jerry Heller.
No, it's like, okay, your depiction is how they felt of you.
Right. I think it's kind of like how we talked about in Bohemian Rhapsody. Like, it is a movie about a band.
Yeah.
You know, so there will be a certain way you're portrayed.
Yeah.
It's not going to be 100% accurate. I really enjoy this movie. We talked about in Bohemian Rhapsody how it's not as gritty.
Right.
Straight Outta Compton is definitely grittier.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah, it really is. Like, things that they did not show in Bohemian Rhapsody, they show in Straight Outta Compton. And so I enjoyed that. This film is also very long, which again, you just can't put in so many people's lives into it's like over 2 hours.
Right.
And when I watched this film, to me is also like an education in sort of rap and hip hop, because the NWA was so influential.
Right.
So I really appreciated watching that and learning about that group. And also just how the group wanted to portray their truth of where they lived, and their life experience,
and just speak on it, and make it public, because I think that was their main goal, is like, people need to know like what's happening right now, and that's why they are they wanted to make it known, just like that,
and talking about police brutality and drugs and violence,
things they actually experience on an everyday basis growing up in Compton.
And that's something they comment on in the movie. They're being interviewed by reporters, and in the film they say, well, what do you see when you open your door? You know, when you walk out in the morning, like, this is what I see. And they were very adamant in that, and just like learning about it, I think also helps me appreciate like the gangster rap more. And they didn't actually give it the title gangster rap. They called it reality rap. And they said that the media gave it the term gangster rap that we now call it. And I would just say the group has been hugely influential on so many artists since then. You definitely see why.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, they're really good, and you can see the power they had and the influence on so many people.
Yeah. I like how in this movie they showed each person and how they were going through something, like when Dre's brother died, or you know, when Ice Cube leaves the band or the group, because he's just like, no, you got really like some things that happen. And then even Eazy-E's whole, you know, thing there, and I just liked how, and they showed that they supported each other, just like how the band Queen, like, we're a family. You can see that definitely with NWA also, how like when they found out that Dre's brother died, and they were like, dude, we're all here for you, man, like, we're a family, we got your back, kind of thing, you know what I mean? So I like both of those aspects in each of these movies.
I agree. I really enjoyed seeing that. And just like seeing that side of the group, you know, I feel like it's really easy to just see some of the things they put out and not see the relationship that they had. Or also some of the struggles that they had after making it big, like after their album went out, struggles with their management, and sort of also like in Bohemian Rhapsody, the struggles of who to trust.
Exactly.
And I definitely felt that watching this film. And that's something that they talk about. And that's a huge conflict point in the film. And in reality, like when Ice Cube walks away from NWA because of money and management. And so I really enjoyed that.
And I feel like that portrays a lot of bands and music groups that they go through anyway. So it's like, don't be blind to all this. If somebody's telling you something, just kind of be aware of what's happening around you. So like, if you are in a group or a band and you're going through something like that, just understand people are looking out for you, and people are also, you know, they're the ones that are manipulating you in a nice way. So be careful there. There we go. Be careful.
Exactly. I feel like you also see that in this movie. There's Dre, I feel like, is like, I'm an artist, and he wants to be an artist. But then you also see that there is a need to be an artist, but also a businessman. Kind of like how Ice Cube finds out what's going on. He kind of understands, and he leaves like for business, really.
He was definitely a big businessman.
He's a businessman from the beginning.
And you can tell in his life. In general.
I mean, after NWA, like the way like Dre and Ice Cube have just been really successful in the music world.
Right.
And you're seeing like they had that business ability.
Yeah.
And also their creative ability that really catapulted them afterwards. I mean, Ice Cube is also considered an actor.
Yeah.
You know, all the movies that he's done afterwards.
Great. He's great.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed this film. I would say it's a great film to learn more about the NWA, to learn more about the history of rap
culture.
Yeah, I agree.
In general,
the culture of it, and if you like music, you should definitely watch this.
Yeah, it's good.
It's really good. It also paints because there's the historic time of the LA riots.
Yeah, and
you get to see you know, some things about that. Yeah, which I think is really great. I don't know if this is a spoiler, but you learn about. I mean, another connecting factor between Bohemian Rhapsody and Straight Outta Compton is AIDS, and seeing how that influences the film and the people they portray.
Right. I also feel like in NWA, it gives you an awareness of not just like the lyrics of their songs, but the meaning behind it. Yes. Like in Ice Cube's song F the Police or something like that, just because it's like when you said when we open a door every day, this is what we see, and it kind of gives you that feeling too. It's just like, yeah, that makes sense, because I'd be upset too. And them being in it and being rappers, I mean, that was their way of expressing how they felt, whether, you know, they could have did it in a nicer way, use different words, whatever. That's how they chose to get their, you know, get what they felt like they needed to get out. And I really like that, because you can feel and understand better that it's not just we don't like you because of whatever. It's like, no, they have valid reason, you know, and you get that feel in this movie. Yeah,
you really do. And I really appreciate that, and I appreciate learning about that. I would also say with Cube and Dr. Dre like being producers, I really feel like you feel their influence, kind of like how you feel that with Brian and Roger and Bohemian Rhapsody. You know, if you're in it and you know the truth and you're involved in the production of the film, in a way you do also change how it portrays certain things. And I feel like it portrayed members of NWA in certain ways that they kind of chose. And as I said, it is grittier, and you see a lot of what goes on and what they do.
I wouldn't recommend watching this with your children.
No, don't watch this with your children, because they definitely show what happened and what goes on. And it does, like, it'll influence how you see like Ice Cube and Dr. Dre, who were very influential even now. It influences how you see them, because you see what they went through. And I feel like sometimes it paints them sympathetically. In a way, I feel like it paints them as like the good guys in certain situations. And I walked away from watching that being like, I want to know more about the situation. I want to know what happened. And, you know, you kind of see some of the mistakes they make when they're younger. And I feel like it also does still portray them sympathetically. And sometimes I agree with that, and sometimes I don't. But I really enjoyed this film. I've watched it multiple times now, and I love it every time. And it is a good one. Critically acclaimed. It was nominated. So you should definitely go see it.
It is good.
It's also longer, so beware.
It really is. So both of these movies, Bohemian Rhapsody and
Straight Outta Compton. Please go see them both.
If you haven't seen Straight Outta Compton, because it's been out for a while. I feel like you should have been saw it.
If you haven't seen it, you definitely should. It is a very good film. And of course, Bohemian Rhapsody is still in theaters. Please go see it, or at least go listen to Queen.
Either way.
Both ways are great. So thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you tune in next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Movie Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.